Welcome to another episode of Leading by Association, your source of truth of data and insights leadership, brought to you by Generation1.ca, a culturally significant platform and community and social enterprise that places Canada's and North America's newcomers at the forefront of data and insights innovation globally. I'm your host, Arundhati, founder of Generation1.ca, and have with me another special guest, kickstart a serious but strong holiday month, Greg Melia. Welcome to our show. Greg is the CXPA's, the Customer Experience Professional Association's Chief Executive Officer. Greg works with the CXPA Board of Directors to ensure the health of CXPA's culture, strengthen its position as the trusted source of truth for all things CX, and leads the staff to create a vibrant ecosystem and community. So welcome, Greg. Very honored to have you.
It is great to be here with you today.
I want to start with asking you a bit of a true and false type of icebreaker question. We hear sometimes that there is more maybe solidarity among plumbers than market researchers, and I've heard this in the context of salaries, of employee experience, and even for issues like corporate governance. Would you say, what are your thoughts about that, and where do you think CX fits in this equation?
That's a great space, this notion of solidarity and how people come together, how they collaborate, how they work. Those are all near and dear to me. I think it's interesting when you think about plumbing, and we think about everything that happens to get water to your house and away from your house and through your house and hopefully not through the walls. We think about all of the ways that those pipes need to interconnect. We think about the standards, the threads have to be correctly, the knowledge has to be correct, the people need to collaborate and work together. And so I'm glad to hear that when it comes to plumbers, that there's a lot of solidarity, or is it that there's more difference between them? What are we thinking about plumbers? Are they coming together, or are they competing with one another?
Coming together, collaborative, I'd say.
And I think that does work for the piping and the connections, but I guarantee you that every plumbing company that is out there is also saying, okay, well, how do I get this plumbing contract? How am I selected? And so I think that's one of the things that is the question of really bringing people together. And so to answer your question, I think there's two things. One, I think that customer experience is about bringing all of the departments and all of the silos within an organization together. And it's not about getting water to and from the house. It's about making sure that the customer remains happy and has a positive perception in all of those pieces of the journey, whether it's marketing or billing or product quality. That is the part that happens. That is the flow that we're trying to maintain. The second side of that is are CX professionals collaborative and do they have a lot of solidarity? I would say absolutely. When you talk about people who serve in a CX professional role, that their ability and capacity to have empathy, to have understanding, to have collaboration, very high. And people are very much willing to work with one another. But I will also acknowledge, if we change that P word from CX professional to CX pundit, that one of the greatest challenges that we have is that there are a lot of different perspectives out there about what customer experience is, how to approach customer experience, and that is just as dangerous as having a pipe that doesn't thread correctly into the water source.
That's an excellent point you bring up about the balance between standardization and diversity or authenticity. But I mean, people can unite over good experiences and they can unite over bad experiences, and I guess that's where I'm getting these comments from, and it can work in favor of a brand or it can work terribly against a brand. It's
bridging that idea of insights and data with customer experience. The customer is going to have that interaction with a brand, regardless of whether you measure it. The question is does your company care enough to hear, listen, learn, and adapt? And that's where I think that we really benefit in the customer experience space, is to not only have a hypothesis about how we can design a better flow, but also how we're going to monitor, how we're going to look at those data points and how we're going to adapt and adjust. Because let's even think about the data for one of my favorite companies, Coca-Cola. They brought out new Coke, the data they thought was going to do it, but what they really needed to listen to was the nostalgia that people had. And so you need to be, as a CX professional, you need to be willing to listen to your data analysts and make sure that you are making strong decisions based on what your customers are telling you.
So seeing all this and all that needs to be achieved, what is the top industry problem that you think that really keeps you up at night? I mean,
I think probably the largest industry problem is making sure that we focus on the signal rather than the noise. To me, customer experience is about making sure that we keep in mind that it is about the way that an individual feels as they interact with a company. It is not about making sure that they are forced into a channel that they may not be interested in. So I can say, for example, me as a customer, I love to be able to do something online. My parents prefer to do something on the phone. And so how do you create a path that is correct for your desired customer and space? It's not about the question of, oh, wow, we can create a chat engine, because somebody may like a chat engine, somebody else may not. And so to me, the question is how do you remain true to the purpose of your company, the outcomes that you're looking to develop, and make sure that you aren't drawn away by the latest flashy technology, but instead you ask that question every time. Is this good for our customer? Is this good for the team that is delivering to the customer? And is it good for the organization's bottom line?
You mentioned something about how you did some journey mapping about where CX leaders they are today, and also about something with businesses themselves. What are their how are they managing CX within their different types of organizations? So I'm curious to see what more to learn more about those studies, and along those same lines or similar lines, I run a study that's focused on tracking skills for success in the industry, data analytics insights, and I'm curious to see how there might be some intersections between some of your findings for specific to the CX profession and the broader data and insights industry.
Yeah, I love that. So a few different things. I think here on the wall behind me, you see a chart that is a journey map of a CX leader's first year at a company. And what's interesting about that journey map is that it talks about the two different pathways. One is a case where an individual is promoted from within, and it talks about how they need to build not only that lateral buy-in from their organization, but also that opportunity to bring in the outside in. Whether that's the customer's perspective or industry insight. To come along and build buy-in and build a team. And we'll come back to that team concept in a minute. On the other hand, if you're coming in from the outside, all of a sudden you have to build those internal relationships, because CX is not done in isolation. If I was going to say, what is the number one skill that you need to have? It's not writing a survey. It's not responding to a angry customer. It's not doing a journey map. It is being able to collaborate with different leaders across the organization, from the C-suite all the way to the mailroom, to make sure that as customers encounter the organization from the mailroom to the CEO, that they're having a consistent and positive experience. So that's one study that we did. The second that we are doing as a follow-up to that is really to talk about how CX is structured within organizations. Because CX is working across the organization, it's important that that leader either is in the C-suite or has a connection to the C-suite. But then the question gets really interesting. Do you have a centralized department that goes out and becomes emissaries to the organization? Or do you have a dispersed department that is trained to be representatives of the CX team? I don't think that there's a right answer. I think a lot of it comes out of the history of the organization, its structure, its different operating models and different spaces. But you have to figure out how CX has a remit and has an influence across all parts of the organization if it's going to be successful. Because remember, the customer interacts across the entire space. And then the last piece of research that, and it's kind of funny to say it last because it's probably the most important, is that we've done 2 different global studies on the skills and competencies that are needed to be a customer experience professional. We've assumed some of the areas in the beginning, that you have to be able to make a cogent presentation, you have to be able to work well with others. But we've really honed in on the different areas of leading culture and looking at data and design. You know, if I had to say the one thing that is probably a CX superpower, is recognizing that it is the design stage that is the greatest potential to take your organization to the next level by not only avoiding problems before they happen, but by creating a new, better mousetrap, so that people come and get involved with your organization. What are you seeing as the key skills for data and insights?
So collaboration, yes. And I guess everyone's approach to it and aspiration for it gets a little different. But quantitative numeracy, being numerate across context, being able to paint the social context that helps communicate the findings of one organization to another, but importantly, data management. So these were some of the top skills. So collaboration / communication, being able to communicate across context, build a social social picture, social context, add more background, but very much quantitative research analysis, and being able to communicate that commentary research methods and quantitative data analysis. So it was very much focused on being numerate and being able to speak to and work with large amounts of data. So that those were the top. But and then they said technology not so much because it felt learnable, but it was mostly around being able to work across enterprise and I'd say this was a supplier skew. But definitely big data numeracy, being able to communicate, collaborate, being able to fit within the business mandate or scope, problem scoping also emerges.
And I think you're going to have a lot of CX listeners to this session that are relating to this. Particularly this question and idea of data cleanliness and data completeness. As a matter of fact, we just completed a book on data governance. And what we view as the CX leader's responsibility is to work with the different owners of the different data sets to be able to come up with that understanding that we are better when we can leverage insights across the organization, rather than getting siloed into data that is maybe collected by fulfillment or by finance, and not having those 2 elements work together. Because again, the customer feels that when they've given you updated information, or when they think that you should know them based on what they've done, they feel that the organization should be able to take that and play and execute with that. And so I think most CX professionals that are successful either have a positive relationship with their data team, or should be building one if they want to build better success.
Yeah, wow, that's exciting, and I'd love to share links to your to both your findings in this podcast later in the notes. But yeah, no, thank you for that. I attended your speaking of your CX communities. I attended your recent spate of CX Toronto events, and under the able leadership of Lawrence Levinson and Natasha Renaud, now their new president. It was really nice to participate in their myth versus reality exercise or game, and I got me thinking that I need to ask you what type of what is one big global CX myth do you think that has already been shattered in recent times, and one that still maybe has a long way to go in being busted?
Yeah, Toronto is near and dear to me. It is one of the first CXPA communities that I visited after I came on board. And a shout out to Lawrence. He was actually the person who picked me up at the airport. So, you know, not the most amazing thing that he's done, but the most memorable to me. And I'm appreciative for that. Yeah, when I think about the myths in CX, I think that there's a lot of them that are out there. I'm not sure that I would use the word myth as much as I would misunderstanding. But as I think about that, one broad one is the fact that most people in the general public don't understand what customer experience is. And so, I think that I wish I could say that it was busted, but I think a myth that we need to continue to work on is for people to understand that customer experience is not customer service. Customer service is part of it, but customer experience is the intentional act of working across the organization to design, deliver, and monitor and adjust to make sure that the customer's perception of the organization is positive across all touch points. So that's one that we have to work on. What is one that has been shattered? I think that the one that's probably been shattered is that it is going to be successful for you to work on customer resolution. I think that the reality is that if a customer has reached a point where they are upset and have to take action to ask for you to resolve a complaint, you've already lost the battle. You are then only trying to figure out how you're triaging the amount of damage that has been done. The right way to go about it is to try to create a process and product and service that allows people and attracts people to come. And the best customer service is the interaction you never have had to have, because it's been designed well and it delivered on the promise that they were expecting.
And speaking of that, I guess there are some unique sectors that I'd be interested to know, at least our audience would be very interested to know, is how CX differs for those like things. I mean, about restaurants, hospitality, beverages, food, and all that is great. But what about something like funeral services or hospitals, a patient's experience? What unique mindset or approach should CX for those types of sectors need?
Yeah. I think this is great because when we think about customer experience, people often think about that interaction at the grocery store or at the hotel. But the reality is, when you look at customer experience as a business discipline, it's being used everywhere, from the hospitals and the doctor's office that you're mentioning to NASA and to satellite companies that are operating out of this world. I think that the core thing to keep in mind is that the fundamental principles remain the same. You need to understand your customer's needs. You need to design to deliver for that. And you need to try to create a frictionless journey that you can measure and adapt and deliver on. So, when we're thinking about the healthcare system, and we in the United States think a lot about the healthcare system, that experience is actually a connection that comes across insurance companies to healthcare systems to the billing that happens afterwards. And when it is best, it results in a patient who has an easy experience to schedule, gets the care that they need at the right time, has the reimbursement, and the follow-up happens smoothly. Because when somebody is ill or is seeking to avoid becoming ill, the last thing they need is added stress. So things that excite me, what Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina is doing here in my state, which is to proactively remind me that I should be scheduling a dental appointment to take advantage of my benefits, because they know that if I have that appointment, I'm going to be healthier. The dentist is going to have a successful practice, and the insurance company is going to have a lower lifetime cost for intervention. So that's a great place where we can see that the outcome is better for the customer, better for the employees, better for the organization's bottom line. And that carries all the way through, whether it is a hospital that is helping you to have a successful outpatient surgery instead of having to keep you overnight, or it is, the unfortunate time, not an example of the funeral service, but it makes me think of a similar situation. One of the groups in Canada last year was sharing that their parents who lived in a retirement home experienced a flood disaster in their retirement home. And so that retirement home recognized that the needs of the customers in a retirement facility are not only to have a place to live, it's also to have a connected community and to have an experience that is cognitively similar. And so they moved the entire wing to another facility that mimicked that wing, so that people still knew that the cafeteria was down the hall and they still had their connections with their neighbors. That's when you know that a company cares about their customers and wants to have an outcome that is good for everybody, as opposed to a company that just says, you know what, it would be cheapest for us to just split these people up to different empty rooms and move forward. Don't worry about how they're going to feel about it. That is the type of business practice that we want to eradicate from the world by having a customer experience revolution.
Yes, the revolution, yes. And speaking of CX, how does it look like for the outside in terms of social commerce? Because nowadays a lot of people are talking about it and businesses want to leverage that. I wonder, what do you think of a category like a retirement home or a hospital how might they leverage all their improvements in customer service to indicate, so happy patients, for example, they won't necessarily rate their doctors and MDs, or they won't say so what do you think might be some good indicators of satisfied customers in these segments, where you may not necessarily get, if they're happy they won't say anything, so should that be the one of my student groups was creating an app on this.
Yeah, I mean, this is a complicated space because, I think that 7 or 8, maybe even 15 years ago, this focus on word of mouth and social media and how likely are you to recommend our program, product, or service to a friend, that was a very strong part of the reason that people were doing customer experience. I'd like to see a future where people are doing customer experience because they know that it is good for their current customer base, it's good for their employees, it's good for their bottom line, and that those 3 things attract people to them. Truth be told, I haven't read a review of Apple as a product, for some time. I don't need to have the proof of somebody else saying to me that they like an iPhone. I know what iPhone delivers, and that is something that attracts me. And so, I think that's maybe we're a little bit back into our myth there, that you should do CX because you want to generate positive word of mouth. Positive word of mouth, I think back to, I'm going to age myself a little bit here, but I think back a little bit to pets.com. If you remember, pets.com had a sock puppet that was on a commercial, and everybody talked about the pets.com sock puppet. Great word of mouth, no sustainable business model. Whereas on the flip side, when you look at a company, examples that people use from Chewy.com, another online pet space, people talk about the way that Chewy.com, when they make a delivery to an erroneous delivery to a customer, instead of having it returned, they typically tell the person to donate it to a local pet shelter. It's not, will you recommend us? It is, we're doing this because we think this is the right thing to do for our business model. The cost of return is high, and we think that it will create a positive perception because we still have to replace, what is happening. They do a lot of other things that are there, but I think that they do them because they believe it's the right thing to do, and it's good for the business model, it makes their employees feel good, makes their customers feel good. I don't think they do it because they're looking for a Yelp review or they're looking for a tweet. Oh, is it an X now? What do we call those on on that social media platform? I can't keep up with it.
X, yes, exceed, I don't know. But speaking of social events and socialization, I really, really enjoyed meeting with your very own content director, Gabe Smith, over at Question Pro. We went to X Day in Austin, Texas, back in late October. It was a lot of fun. This was during my reading week as well at college here, so it was really great to exchange ideas on data and insights and get his take on how CX was evolving, and go through the little booklets that everyone had. He said amazing things, of course, but all the amazing work you're doing at the association, and really said that CXPA was taking off because of your credentials in association management, and they were really a boon for the association. So I'm curious to see or understand and learn what lessons you have learned about association management, and given you also won an award, or many awards perhaps, for being an association executive or leader.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, as you look at the books that are back behind me, there's CX, there's association management, there's social psychology, systems theory, and social anthropology. That's most of the books that are back there. And I think when I look through it, the common thread, and I mentioned it earlier, is really this idea of creating a shared mission and helping people do things that are important for them and important for their success that they cannot easily do for themselves. So one of the greatest challenges for a CX professional is to be able to say, trust me, this change that I'm leading is going to help you be successful. And so what we're trying to do is to reduce the skepticism that people have by increasing the understanding of the data that is behind the success of CX as the business strategy. We are trying to help people reduce the risk that comes with experimentation by understanding what has been done and what has been successful, but also to foster that thought of curiosity and of innovation, making smart bets rather than just making wild bets. These are the things that CXPA is doing and that I think associations should be doing. And then lastly, the biggest thing that I think we can do is to make sure that we recognize that all of us are stronger than any one of us. So how can we tap into the diversity of experiences and perspectives and strengths that come from our global community and bring that together to have that independent consensus that allows us to, I think there was a famous jazz musician that said, before you can improvise, first you need to learn the musical rules. And that's what we are doing with CXPA is we're helping people to understand the rules and standards and fundamentals of customer experience so that they can take that, apply it to their organization, and help make more happy customers, happy employees, and happy shareholders.
Yeah, and how do you keep happy members? I mean, you have diverse corporate members. How are your association priorities dictated by? Are they dictated by the members' size, or their investment, or their social impact vision, or is it something else? How are you building your industry ecosystem?
Yeah, to me, CXPA is a passionate community of people who care about the things that I've been talking about. And whether you are in between positions or you are the CX leader at a major international company, we want you to be at the table and working alongside of peers to help define these consensus standards and to help advance understanding of customer experience. It is too often associations fall on the sword of trying to sell people a particular software platform or introduce people to a particular service provider. What I think we really need to do is we need to reignite in people what they're most proud of and what they're most excited about being a CX professional, and to bring that together and to help amplify and support their success.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you. In writing about the state of citizen experiences in my own book, because I do a lot of research and love your bookshelf over there behind you, seeing you disseminate passion, knowledge. I'm curious to see what book is there about CX that has not been written yet, in your opinion, and that should be written right away.
Yeah. I will say the book that has not been written yet that should be written, and I would argue it is in the process of, I won't say the process of writing, and I say the process of formation. And that is, well, I guess we'll title it something like the CX Revolution, how focusing on customers, employees, and shareholders revitalized the world's love for business, or the world's love for organizations, because it really isn't business. I mean, there's some great American Medical Association is doing some fabulous work. When we look at what's happening with the Red Cross, when we're looking at different nonprofit organizations, and when we're looking increasingly at governments, one of the things that viewers in the US may not recognize, but should, is that when we were in the midst of the pandemic and the government wanted to make sure that citizens could receive the COVID testing units, that was all designed and delivered through a CX department within the US government. And so when we really think about it, customer experience is also patient experience. It's also citizen experience. It's also all of the different elements that come along to make better outcomes for that organization, the constituency that it serves, and the stakeholders in that organization.
That was an excellent summary and reminder for the CX community and for others looking to understand what CX was about, and bring about business transformation in their respective sectors and organizations. Do you have any final words of advice to viewers of leading by association, which is
I want to pick your brain for a minute. You cover a wide swath of different topics, and one of the topics that you cover is the emerging cannabis industry. Yeah. And I'm curious because in some ways, when you have a new and emerging industry, you have an opportunity to watch the growth. What are you seeing as some of the greatest challenges, as that industry grows, both as a business and as a service unit to customers?
Yes, very much. Thank you. So I guess, well, we've come a long way in terms of stigma, and that has been, that's no more as much of a problem, so to say, if it's from a social standpoint. In terms of public opinion, people are very accepting of it, both in Canada, US. But when it comes to regulations and ease of doing business, there you can maybe, yes, you've set up your company, you've set up your retailer, you've set up your point of sale, whether it's a service or something else, but you're not. You hit a ceiling, you hit a glass ceiling, and you're not able to do more business than that. You're serving your customers, but that's it. There's no expansion plans. There's no those aspirations that the people have for their business. They're not able to they're not able to realize them, because it still faces, there's a lot of regulations both in the States and in Canada, and people are finding it better to look to more mature markets to do business and maybe serve partners elsewhere than because they feel that there was the problem of undersupply first, and then there was the problem of oversupply after the pandemic, and now and regulations not able to keep pace. So people are definitely moving to other regions like the States to find more opportunities there. But I would say that's similar to even job markets, even though there are positives here, there are some negatives in the South, but which is primarily the federal legalization. So people are not able to do business with the same volume and velocity that they hoped. But Germany or Europe is definitely looking like a good, promising opportunity, and people want to, of course, it's still a little hush in terms of what their plans are, and people but they're definitely looking. Germany, Denmark. Denmark has a strong medical program, but definitely looking to see how they can leverage any global markets for, but even Australia, New Zealand. Yeah, so it's still, so misinformation, definitely, education awareness, that was the biggest thing. Consumer education, consumer awareness, this still needs to be, these efforts still need to continue, but there's not enough investment to necessarily support that, because it's still hard to get social compassion or nonprofit status or even budget for a cause like this, or for a business like this. It becomes tricky. It falls sometimes in the gray area. But there are a lot of good companies, and actually having a conference, do one every year in December, kind of a holiday webinar conference, bring together cannabis leaders, cannabis insight leaders from across the world, mostly Canada, US, and some from Europe, across both recreational and medical. And we'll convene on how to leverage more Web3 technologies, because Web3 offers huge potential, like blockchain and metaverse and NFTs and cryptocurrency, to really provide authenticity, and in a time when there's a lot of counterfeit products, and not being able to distinguish between what's the status of a product, the quality of a product. Again, you mentioned product quality. This is one big sector where product quality is the key driver of purchase decisions, and that's going to continue to be so.
Yeah, I love that. As I
yeah.
hear you talk about it, it's like, yes, you hear the same needs that we've been talking about. How do we unite across an industry? And in uniting around it, how do we help make that explanation to the public and increase that understanding? And then when we get that toehold, how do we serve the differences across different geographic regions and across different customer profiles, whether it's recreation or medical? To me, that is exactly why customer experience and data insights and analytics remain so important. It is not just a question of how you can deliver. It's not just a question about understanding taxation and how to open a storefront. It really is about deeply understanding the community, the customers, and what part you play in their lives, and finding ways to do that better, so that it's good for them, good for your business, and good for your employees as well.
Yeah, and it's very much purpose driven, as you mentioned. So it's exciting. So
thank you, Arundhati. I wish you tremendous success on that conference,
thank you
and
so
look
much.
forward to our next conversation.
Looking forward. Thank you so much, Greg.